Yeah, so hello everybody. I'm seeing people joining us, so we're just gonna wait like a couple of minutes, um, wait around for a couple more of you all to join, and then we can start. Oh, perfect. I think we're live, everyone. So, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining and welcome to this Product People Talk and event. So, before we start, a quick reminder to everybody that all our events are streamed on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitch. All of our talks are recorded and saved on YouTube. So, feel free to check it out for any session that you may have missed or any topic that you might find interesting. However, one of the perks of joining us live is that you get to share your insights and ask questions directly from our presenters via Slido. So go ahead and scan the QR code or go to slido.com and use the QR to join the chat where you can begin interacting with us. So, yeah. Um, so today's session is going to be about what building AI in B2B has taught Angad that product books did not teach him. It's going to be presented by Angad Abrol, who is the VP of Product at FarEye. Um, Before we jump into the call, I'm going to take a couple of minutes to quickly introduce myself and product people. So, my name is Zara Malik. I am an associate product management consultant at Product People, and I'll be your host today. I have a background in software engineering and development, and I've worked across startups and large corporations and gained experience through different domains, ranging from automotives and maritime traditional industries all the way to e-commerce and cybersecurity. So a little bit about what Product People does. So for those who don't know us, Product People provides interim product management and product leadership through 40 product managers, for our 40 in-house product managers. We also run one of the largest PM communities in Europe with more than 60,000 members. Um, yeah. So before we jump in and hand it over to our speaker, we would love to hear a little bit more about our audience. So here's a question for you. What scares you the most about building AI into B2B products? Is it hallucinations or wrong outputs that you're concerned about, enterprise trust issues, weak ROI, being asked to ship it before anyone defines success? Or you're concerned about the internal hype without substance. We're gonna go ahead and scan the QR, and we would love to hear more. But in the meantime, like I was looking at this question, Angad, and the one thing that I kept thinking about is like, how does AI building AI is different in B2B versus B2C? And one thing that really stuck to me was that for B2B, every consumer or every customer or every user is different. So it is not one size fits all kind of a situation. It has to be customized with tweaks or however different the flow is for each user. And I think that's a very unique challenge to look into, which is going to be essentially defining your success per the kind of user that you may have. And I think that makes it really tricky. But I would love to hear a little bit from you as well while we wait for the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me, Zara, and Product People team. I think, anyways, this the reason for this topic itself is, that generally there's such a great library of content out there on product management. So great books like Continuous Discovery Habits, Inspired, The Monk Test. So many of them good ones. I also recommend these books to a lot of people on my team as well as the ones that I mentor. Somehow, when you put all those learnings together, what comes to mind is what we do day in day out with B2B product management. The physics is really different from what we usually read and take as learnings from these books. So it's not that those books are wrong, by the way. Those learnings are absolutely well in place, but we're not talking about a million users or million feedbacks. We're talking about probably a dozen feedbacks But in each feedback, not only one decision maker, which is deciding whether to drop or to continue their journey, but maybe 12 different stakeholders who decide how that the journey should look like. So the physics totally changes in B2B. And that's why some of these frameworks, though helpful, we still need to find our own innovativeness to have frameworks which make sense in our context of B2B product management. And that's the aim today, to be honest. I'm just trying to put the learnings that I've had in form of three different stories, and I hope that we are able to define some frameworks which people can really use.
Yeah, I think I fully agree that B2B and B2C is much, much different just in terms of the core of how the product operates, and how many stakeholders and how many people it actually touches during the product journey itself. But yeah, from our audience, it looks like hallucinations and wrong output seem to be the popular opinion among people. Um, so yeah, perfect. Now that we know a little bit about the audience, without further ado, I'm gonna let Angad take the reins over here, who is an established product leader with multiple years of experience across product management and entrepreneurship. And yeah, we're really, really looking forward to hearing from you and learning from you as well.
Thank you, Zara. Should I share my screen now?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Zara, if you can confirm once you are able to see my screen.
Yes, we have your screen.
Okay. Again, thanks everyone for joining in. I think we're trying to talk about a topic that a lot of us as PMs, day in day out, are responsible for, and might be working on, but probably is said or written less, is what I feel. And let's just dive into it, and let's go into this learning journey together. So this is something, one line, this is not a quote by anyone, just to make sure that we are taking it in the right fashion. This is basically something. I was standing in front of a steering committee of one of our customers, B2B, big multi-billion dollar giant customer, few months back. And actually we had come up with one latest version of our algorithm, which was actually improving accuracy of what we do, specifically in routing, in logistics, by more than 60%. It was actually improving a lot, and we were really excited about it. But what we got told by that steering committee was actually this line. So this is the quote which that steering committee told us, which is, "This is absolutely great model what you guys have developed. It's really inspiring, and it's the roadmap item number 8, that we can possibly pursue in coming months. But yes, prove 4% of savings in 5 stores, or it'll die, because that's the metric that we are chasing. If it really wants to make the cut, that okay, this is the project that we should implement now. And this is the reason why I feel that this topic needs to be discussed, because if you really think about those enterprise rooms where these workshops happen, where you talk about these AI journeys slash innovations, uh, a lot of these objections are not really objections, but they are all really rational thinking by steering committee, who is supposed to deliver an ROI. And supposedly a lot of these rules are not existing in the great product books that generally we read. And that's something that I try to do today I just trying to I'm just trying to bring the field notes from some of these enterprise rooms as stories, and then convert them into basically learnings for us, or frameworks for us, so that you can go, and if you are working in B2B, then you can just go and take an action tomorrow. Before we go there, I think it's also important to understand what kind of audience we are speaking with. So here's another question for all of us. I think it's just important to read the temperature of the room. What type of audience is here right now, which is live? So if you can just take a minute to maybe in the chat, write a little bit about yourself, and maybe in one of these four options, how many of you actually work with B2B enterprise customers? So that we keep it the stories relevant for you guys. Uh, so is it something that is your everyday job that you work with enterprise customers, or is it mixed? You may on and off work with them depending on you may be working on different products, B2B/B2C, or you may be totally in B2C domain. That also can be an option. And the last one is you are here just to learn, maybe an aspiring PM, maybe from some other org of a company, but you are just probably here to learn. If you guys can just take a minute to tell about yourselves, it'll be good to just read the temperature of the room. How many of us will directly relate with these stories versus not. So we'll just pause for 30 seconds to see if we can get some responses. And Zara or Gazmeer, if you can just help me, what's the temperature of the room, what kind of people we have. Once the response start coming in, it'll be great. Then maybe we can move on and start the stories after 30 seconds.
Yeah, urging everyone to just quickly drop a couple of lines in the comment section of whatever platform you're watching us from.
And I think while you all are filling it, I'll just put a reason why it's important to understand this question. Because generally, when these discussions are happening, we all assume that majority of you might be working with enterprise customers and you might be already part of the enterprise rooms. But and accordingly, we may, for example, I have some playbooks that I feel that you may be able to just steal today out of this session and apply. The truth is that a lot of those playbooks are implementable for B2B customers as well as a 20% startup as well. It is doable. Obviously, you just have to adapt it. Um, but it's still important to understand, your background so that, we are able to steer the discussion in the right way.
Yeah, it looks like we have a very interesting mix here of people who are already working in B2B,
Yeah.
and people who are aspirational PMs and are here to learn. So I think might want to fix the temperature somewhere in the middle.
Okay. Okay, that's always good to have a good mix. I think if you're already in B2B, then I'm 100% sure that whatever I'm going to say today, probably you would have lived some version of this and you would understand some part of this. uh, and if you are an aspiring PM slash thinking of getting into B2B product management, I think it's good to learn that this is the physics that you're going to encounter the moment you step into this side of the world. So it's still good to learn. Let's move on with that. And the topic itself, let's first talk about that, the book versus the room, right? And as I said, there are so many good books out there, and I myself recommend, I've read and I recommend them to so many PMs and so many peers, generally speaking. And they are necessary, by the way. So I absolutely feel they are necessary. The thing that I genuinely feel is that they are necessary, but they are not sufficient. And as we discussed, initially, when we were starting the session, and I will stress this fact that the B2B enterprise product management is honestly written for a very different physics than the physics that we see with a lot of the books and the content out there. B2B product management doesn't come with millions of users or feedbacks in hours or one person deciding whether they want to continue on their journey, adopt a product or not. Enterprise AI runs on absolute different physics. You really have handful, dozens of customers. You get feedback in quarters, not in minutes or not in hours. So you usually get feedback in quarters because there are specific ways how that feedback structure channels are created, like a quarterly business review in a lot of cases. And most important part, that in an enterprise B2B, usually every decision has at least anywhere between, depending on the size, 6 to 12 different stakeholders who will be taking the decision. So what you see on this slide, basically on the left hand side, you'll see something that the books say, versus right hand side is something that an enterprise room actually says when you start conversing with them. I'll not go through each of them, but think about it. For example, uh, the books fundamentally talk about the frameworks of how do you build a MVP. Initially, it was called as minimum viable product. Now, a lot of people call it as minimal lovable product, MLP, etc. There are different forms and formats of it, depending on what kind of work you are doing. So that's what book says. Ship out an MVP and iterate as fast as possible. Principle is right, but when you take that MVP into an enterprise boardroom or a steering committee, what you get is perfect. This makes sense. This is a good idea, great idea. Can you prove, let's say, in a five-store pilot, that this will actually save 4% for our operations? If you can, perfect. Otherwise, the feature dies at that particular gate. So, yes, you may be able to ship an MVP fast, but the conversation is actually whether you can translate that into a metric which makes sense for the customer and which is directly related to the ROI. On the other side, you know, if you think about it, we speak so much about selling the vision of AI, what all AI can do, and now a lot of books are written fundamentally on that. But the truth is, when you're working in a B2B enterprise product management, there are a stack list of what all things that need to be done, as projects slash items that a customer need to do. And one of them might be, let's say, an integration with an ERP or something. And your AI vision actually is competing for that bandwidth of IT slash operations resources to actually get that room that you are able to actually then implement and talk about AI. So this is the truth. Both columns are true, books as well as what room says. But the truth is that only one of them usually ships. That's the most important thing to uh, take as a key takeaway. This is a poll that I think, Zara, you had launched before we started, and I think the major result of this poll was hallucinations and wrong outputs. And I'll be honest, or Zara, if you have any other findings, please
Yeah.
please feel free to share. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's now 50-50. So we have 50% people on hallucinations or wrong outputs, and there's a 50% on enterprise trust issues.
Wow. Okay. So I think that's actually representative of the audience also, because in my opinion, when you're thinking about an enterprise B2B product, and let's say 18 months, 24 months ago when Gen AI was kicking in, hallucination and wrong outputs honestly was something which was on top of my mind as well. Because it's okay for a chat GPT to say that, you can write this email and I can just edit it, which is still okay. And even if it hallucinates, it's not a problem. But in a B2B world where probably your agent that you are designing might be responsible for a financial workflow, for example, a wrong turn by an agent means possibly thousands of dollars lost or thousands of euros lost. So hallucination and wrong output honestly very intuitively comes to the mind. But I think the moment you start working with the customers in the field and start implementing certain AI applications, you realize that hallucination and wrong outputs are the last thing you really need to worry about, because the pace today at which models, especially the frontier lab models, are improving themselves is so massive. And truly the bottleneck is the people who are trying to implement this, which is us. And it's not the hallucination part, but actually, I now that I work more, and this is something that we'll see, as I go about the three stories, that fundamentally trust issues is something which comes in again and again. That's one. And weak ROI is the absolute truth, in my opinion, because the more I speak with our customers and sponsors or in our customers, majority of the time, if I had to build a word cloud, one thing that comes out is that Gen AI has helped us do so many things faster, ship faster. So basically, it has helped us to produce maybe anywhere between 2 to 5x output, but outcomes are almost still the same. And that is the worrying part, that okay, we build a lot of fancy things, but the ROIs are still, questionable. So, anyways, we'll get into some of these stories and we'll talk more about it. Okay, so today what we're gonna do in next 20-25 minutes approximately is I'm gonna take you through three actual stories of three customers. Uh, which happened. And obviously, for the sake of confidentiality, I would not take the names of these customers, but I will put some numbers when I'm trying to explain this so that you are able to put some quantum to what I'm trying to tell you as story. So the flow that we will see is three stories of three actual customers, three playbooks of okay, what probably we can do in such stage, and then towards the end I have a one page that we can give as a giveaway. If you're building your own stack of AI, what all you can think of, let's say putting these learnings all together. And the three stories that I'm going to share today, actually I was trying to build an arc and a natural story that flows. And what happened is then I realized that okay, there are different stages in an enterprise that we should talk about. So the story one will actually talk about the stage one, which is how enterprises fundamentally buy AI. And that's the first step, someone buying an AI. Second story is about how enterprises trust AI. Once you have started seeing something happening, in your product, do I really trust it? Can I just let it run? These are all important questions for the users. And third is, okay, now I bought it, now I trust it, let's say maybe 50 to 70%, depending on the client. Now, how do I really keep on running AI basically? What else do I, iterate on? So, these are all different learnings from three different clients. So, I'll try to run them as an arc and then see what playbooks we can take as a takeaway. Perfect. Let's dive into the first story, which is how enterprises fundamentally buy AI. And this is actually a story, we work with a lot of big and bulky furniture retailers slash home improvement, companies, the likes of, let's say, IKEA, Wayfair, Electrolux, Whirlpool, MediaMarkt, etc. So quite a lot of them. And globally, we work with a lot of global furniture retailers. And this is something that actually happened. What you see on the screen, our engineering team actually launched a new algorithm which was supposedly a machine learning based algorithm which was improving the accuracy of service time, which is basically the time a driver takes to deliver slash service a particular call. And the machine could obviously, based on the feedback, it could learn a lot of it and then autocorrect some assumptions in the order data, which actually what it was doing is it was increasing our route accuracy gain by 60%. That was massive because it took us quite a lot of months to get to that kind of a number. So think of your engineering teams being so happy, your product teams being so happy that materially now you can actually benefit your customers, improve your route accuracy, improve, and hence reduce their, let's say, costs. So that was amazing. And the truth is that as PMs, and it goes back to the basics of honestly, product management with, and this is, I feel, still the biggest fallacy slash mistake that we all do, which is something that I did. I entered into a QBR with this particular customer, bringing this beautiful matrix slide and saying that we will improve your route accuracy by 60%. This is what model considers. This is the greatest model that you can think about. So basically I was just trying to sell something which was a true engineering marvel, and that was the biggest mistake. And the reason is I was trying to sell intelligence. And the important thing is, what that room did is it actually started thinking of this as where does it fit in our larger set of priorities. There are so many things we have to do to improve our two-way data workflows. So we have to integrate with the service now. We have to ensure that our returns workflow works. We have to ensure that SSO is established because of a new regulation that's coming in because of the compliance in Europe. Okay, so we have to stack rank this particular thing against all of those items. And we did. And they said, and this is what exactly you see on the screen, they said that if your this beautiful new algorithm can actually save us more than 4% on our cost, and basically it can bring in a network savings worth annually at least of $8 million, then we can put it on item number 8 on our roadmap, which means that once all these 7 items are done, our IT teams will be able to pick it up and actually execute it. So if you think about it, I'm trying to sell in intelligence. They are putting a gated number and a criteria of what success looks like, and that is the biggest gap. So, what is the learning out of it? And this is what I really think is a playbook one. Playbook number one. Feel free to honestly look at it and maybe screenshot this one, because I feel this is one of the most important ones. Because the truth is, when we as PMs are working on these innovations, I think there are on a large scale 3 different metrics that are at play. One is a model metric, second is a ops metric, and third is a money metric. Our internal teams usually sit on the left side of the metric, which is the model metric, which is where we celebrate 60% accuracy and we try to sell that. The truth is that money and the decision whether to buy this or not actually lies in the absolute right side of the metric, as you can imagine, which is the money metric. And in between, the users might be a persona. In our case, it's operation folks. In your case, it might be someone else. They are looking at some efficiency and some metrics also. So that's in between metric, which is an ops metric. Now, 3 takeaways. One, it's important as a PM to write your kill gate yourself. What's a kill gate? A kill gate is basically a threshold that you should define that, okay, my model should create this much delta. Let's say a delta 4, delta 5, delta X 10, and you should be confident enough of that number and you should define it yourself before a procurement person does it for you. Because the moment they do it, you would have no idea how to commit to it. And I see a lot of deals stalling there, because procurement will ask, can you say that KPI will say that, okay, 4% saved. But because you haven't done your math, your pitch is not ready, you may not commit to it contractually, and that's where the kill happens. So it's better to to write that kill gate yourself. That's one. Second, when you're thinking of a metric, we all of us, specifically in B2B product management, we work with industry experts, the likes of Forrester, Gartner, McKinsey, etc. And usually they have beautiful models of, and then actually what they do is, they, from an industry standpoint, they are known to give us a common uh, language that we can share, which means that a customer understands certain metrics, let's say accuracy of an algorithm in terms of percentage, or absolute cost saved in the warehouse, some metric. But the truth is, if you really are trying to sell in a B2B setup like this, which is, let's say, a giant retailer, uh, and if you want to make the cut, the right side of the metric, which is the money metric, should actually be a number which CFO already is actually supposed to present to their board. So it cannot be a new metric which is not part of the board presentation. If it is, it will be dropped out of that stack rank. But if you, the moment you are able to translate that into something which he or she has to present to the board, that's where the game starts. And the last thing is, if you cannot put a euro slash dollar figure to your entire AI, uh, the truth is that that conversation is not ready. It's as simple as that, because they all are gating your success behind a certain metric. So in short, model metric, ops metric, money metric, think about these things. What is internal? What is the most important metric for the users, and what is the most important metric for the buyer? And the buyer in this case is, let's say, CFO, etc. So we need to run this value translation chain, as PMs, and this is our duty. And that's something which is really important. And that's how enterprises fundamentally buy. Perfect. If that's, I hope that this has sunk in. And now let's go into, second story of the day, which is how do the enterprise fundamentally trust AI? And I'm gonna talk about a German electronics retailer, and this is a a different story. Now, obviously, we have sold. They are using a product, and you think about it. They are going through a massive change in their warehouses and the design of their supply chain. And generally speaking, the question that they ask is, because now it's live and it's running, is the question that they asked me in one of the, again, business reviews is, what percentage of your routes or AI generated routes do my dispatchers have to fix? So basically, they are trying to understand that, okay, I was earlier using a very different system, which was supposedly not AI enabled. And my dispatchers were creating the plans for the drivers, where should they go first, second, third, themselves. Now you have given me a tool, which is supposedly a AI enabled slash AI powered tool, and it is generating routes. So basically, it is taking away that effort from dispatcher. And now the machine is recommending where should drivers go. But the question that they have is, what percentage of those routes will my planners who plan these routes accept as is? And if you really think about it, what is this KPI? This is basically humans correcting the machine. This is the KPI that they are asking about, right? And then you start looking at how do these dispatchers actually, dispatchers is one of the user persona of our products. And then you start going deeper and seeing, how do they actually edit the routes or change things in our product. And then you suddenly realize that you know it's a behavior, it's a user behavior, that what they do is they don't want to touch what machine has done. What they instead do is they create a copy of the entire result that machine has generated, and they edit only, let's say, as you can see in the screen, route 3 and route 7. So basically out of 10, they basically edit, make some changes to 3 and 7, because probably they know the drivers better or the areas better. So they say that no, this driver can take more, so I'll put another stop to it, etc. So they do those changes and they're done. uh, Now, if you think about it, this is a 20% intervention and not 100%. But in an enterprise context, just so that you know, it took us actually a couple of weeks to agree that this was 20%, not 100%. Because the truth is that an entire machine output was copied and then edited. Then if you literally take the translation of the matrix, it feels like that 100% is being edited because entire route was copied. But the truth is it was only 20%. So if you really think about it, defining the matrix and how do they get captured itself is a process, right? That's one. Second thing, and this something that turns might turn some of you into, okay, is this really possible? So for example, there is a lot of analysis that our product does when a driver is on the ground and is executing the deliveries. There's machine learning about how the addresses should be corrected, machine learning about how much time a driver on an average takes at stop A versus stop B, and how can we improve the routing accuracy because of that, etc. Now, we have defined this as a metric, but the problem is that GPS tracking for this particular customer by default had to be disabled. The reason of that was, but this was actually a board level privacy decision, by the way. So you think about it, that obviously, and this is the labor law, that in Germany there's a works council, and you need a prior approval from them before actually tracking, your drivers or employees, and you need to present to the works council why do you want to do that. When you really think about it, that your data supply chain and the KPIs that you're trying to define actually has legal owners that you probably even haven't met, and you have not even thought about when you were designing that product. That you may have thought that this is a KPI that I will instill, but there are geographies, there are customers where there are legal owners of what you're trying to track, and that creates another level of complexity. The learning from, honestly, this one was, we have to design for override, especially when we are talking about enterprises. uh, you know three of top four things that you can actually do is instrument every touch. In this example, if you really think about it, And what does design for override mean? Let me start with that. Design for override means that, okay, there might be certain KPIs for your product which are accepted industry KPIs. And it makes sense for you to adopt those KPIs because it's an industry metric. But the truth is, because of the way this gets used or the dependency it has from the people who are, let's say, because of labor laws, etc., also in picture, you should be ready as a product manager, product designer to design these KPIs to be able to override them based on the context of that particular B2B enterprise customer. And I think important thing over here, and I'll not go through each and everything in the interest of time, but what's important in this example is something that I learned, and honestly, this is one of the learnings. As I speak with more PMs, I realize this becomes tough. Uh, Generally speaking, and it's a little counterintuitive what I'm gonna say, but the truth is, in my experience, B2B customers are actually more resilient and open to your system not being perfect the moment they go live. They are more resilient to that. They are okay if, at launch or go live, certain things are breaking or certain things are not making sense because they have been used to that kind of experience with all different, enterprise products. So if you think about it, honestly, the truth is that at the launch, in this example, percentage of AI routes that get edited, let's say by humans. At launch, let's say 40% of your routes, 50% of your routes are getting overridden by humans. Usually it's not a problem because it's also user behavior. A user who has been planning on an Excel or whatever way they have been planning for 17-20 years, you just cannot expect them to suddenly magically feel that today this system will give me the output and that will be the best. And that's why initially that trust curve is low, and you should be open that okay, those users will actually go in and make a lot of edits. The problem is when we as PMs do not track it actually. The moment you make this metric unmeasured, that is where it gets fatal. And what you need to do over a period of time is two things, in my opinion, over here. One is, as the weeks progress, you need to be able to chart a trust curve where you're saying that, for in our example, that edits or slash overrides by human are actually decreasing over a period of time, which means that people are now started trusting what the system or machine is doing. So you need to be able to chart that out, have that conversation with your project heads at your customers, and show them that okay, machine is actually now taking over a lot of work. So we need to be able to co-build and co-establish these metrics. That's one. That's first job, in my opinion, as successful PMs we need to do. And second thing is the product design of it, which you see in the point number 4 on right side. And this is something which I think a lot of uh, product designers as well as product managers kind of skip, which is you need to be able to understand what is the moment of doubt for that particular user. And in this example, the moment of doubt is okay, the routes are generated, but okay, I see them, but I'm not sure whether they are right. So I will create a copy and I will edit. Now, that particular call to action is actually the moment of doubt. Now, the question is, as a good PM slash good product designer, what can I do at that particular call to action? Maybe a tooltip, maybe something. What can I do there? What can I inject at that point? That the moment somebody is creating that copy, they get a notification or they get some message which tells them that probably yes, you are right, you may want to edit it, but and these are the three things that you may want to look at, or take some feedback there and there itself. So I'll not go into the solutioning, but the point is that a good product manager or a good product designer will explain at the moment of the doubt. That is something which is very important. And at the end of the day, you will be able to win the trust with your customers only if you are able to chart this trust curve. So this is how, let's say, enterprises fundamentally run. So that was the lesson number 2. And now the last story for today, which is once they have bought, Once they've gone live, they've started trusting the system, which was story number two. Then, okay, how do fundamentally a lot of these our B2B customers, let's say, run the AI? Because now it's an incremental improvement or a massive improvement, but there's a feedback loop, continuous feedback loop that has got established. And how do you run AI? And over here, what I'll try to do is basically give you an example of two different rooms, two different customers that we worked with. On the left side, you see a CPG giant, and what they wanted to do was basically they had great vision. And honestly, in my career, I've seen a lot of RFPs for a lot of customers, and in my opinion, it was one of those that you can categorize as really maybe literally 5 to 10 years forward. And what they wanted to do was they wanted to automate so many things which are honestly trivialized, and so many manual actions are still there, but honestly there are enough patterns to learn and actually automate a lot of them. And they wanted to do that, and basically what they asked us is basically for more AI. So continuous real-time planning, no cutoffs, route generated live as the load is building. It definitely sounded visionary. Believe me, the moment you sit there and they have beautiful workflows, it feels like, wow, my product should absolutely do this. But on the flip side, the truth is, what we ended up doing is we actually rejected it. We did not do it. And again, this is one of the key questions that I personally get asked a lot of times, by PMs, by different people, that how can you reject such a big customer's ask and still build equity? And honestly, it's not even counterintuitive now. But the truth is that majority of the times what I see, the problem is not about accepting or rejecting. Honestly, the problem is in the process of accepting or rejecting, which means that a lot of times people who are in that room and looking at or hearing that feedbacks, irrespective whether they are, let's say, customer service people, client services people, product people, engineers, what I see, mostly happening is that we haven't done our math. So we do not know, if doing this, what are the second order impact of doing this, how the math will turn positively or negatively. And the moment you start taking this as a, let's say, a work to do, and start putting math behind your refusal, in my opinion, the best moments of building truth with your customers and them trusting you are those rejections. And honestly, I really believe in that. A rejection in a B2B enterprise, if you're rejecting to a customer, is actually a feature delivered. It's almost equal to a feature that's delivered. Because the truth is that the kind of work that goes behind rejecting it and the math that you have to do is so massive that it's almost as big as putting any major feature into the product. Sorry. So this is example of saying no and building trust. When someone is asking you for more AI, continuously they want more. And then there is a room two, another customer of us, a meal kit giant. And when we got into workshops with them, and I'm sure if you are in B2B product management, you would have seen these both type of customers. One asks you for make my systems autonomous, sorry. The other one asks you minimize this particular thing for my team. So for example, in this case, it is a problem that they are framing, not a solution. Make it autonomous is a solution someone is recommending to you, versus someone telling you minimize the minutes that our dispatchers spend on correcting routes. That is a problem. Your dispatchers are spending so much time on manually doing changes, and they are actually asking for how can you minimize it. It might be minimized because of a new algorithm. It might be minimized because of a new workflow. It might be minimized because of a new contractor, honestly, nothing to do with software. But the point is, the moment you understand the problem statement that needs to be solved, at least you know that, okay, what can I do and what role I can play really in it. That's the biggest leverage, if you can happen. And in this case, what we shipped it. And from our perspective, we looked at the exceptions and which of the exceptions that dispatchers end up working on can we basically automate through agents? That's what we ended up looking at. But the larger learning because of this second type of customer on the right side was, if you really go that nuance and understand the problem statement, it will actually help you become a better PM and a leader in the context of also putting a dollar value or pricing to your feature or what you're building. Because if you think about the for a moment, just take a pause and look at that second problem statement and rethink what that customer is asking. Minimize the minutes our dispatchers spend correcting routes. Fundamentally, what they are asking is, how can you ensure that as my volume scale, I don't end up, today I have 10 dispatches, I should not end up having, let's say, 20 dispatches because my volumes became 2x. So, what can you do? So, fundamentally, the metric that you are solving for this particular customer is actually a labor line item, not a software line item. And that is, biggest insight, honestly, if you can start simulating what I'm trying to say, because you are trying to reduce the workload so that their team size doesn't increase, which means that now when your sales teams goes into this conversation, and we as PM should be able to enable our sales pre-sales team to have this conversation, you can enable them to tell that no more is this problem a software budget conversation. This problem now is actually a labor line item. And usually, when you are solving for a labor line item, the software budget becomes just a rounding error. And hence, the size of that particular deal and that problem solved can, if you really can do value based selling, can literally be proportion, X times, 5 times, 6 times, 10 times of what a software would have owned. And that's a way to look at it. So, in short, if you have to run this story three tomorrow, the three things that I would recommend is kill the vanity metric. Of course, autonomy percentage is a vanity metric because it's just automating things. But what is it solving for in a business metric? You don't know. So it's a vanity metric. Kill it the moment you see such metrics, and think of the metrics which will actually impact time slash some cost really for the customers. Second thing is price against people cost, specifically if you're building agents. And I know that this is a very high debated conversation, jobs, etc. It's a topic for another day. But the truth is that the value that you are, specifically if you're building good agents, the value that you're putting to the table is a labor item agenda. Hence, you should be able to have the power to price to that. And the third is say no with math. So wherever you can and wherever it doesn't make sense, you should be the one who in the room brings that understanding of possible second order impact of a particular request that a customer is putting and the math doesn't make sense. So this is something that we should do. And okay, just to wrap it off, specifically because now we are building agents, as a giveaway for this particular session and wrapping up the three stories, I have built an agent brief that I'll share with you all. And basically, it's a template that I have personally tried, and now I'm trying to do it more often, which is you put inputs, rules, boundaries, escalation, and measures, knowing these learnings into whenever you're trying to solve for a problem for your team, and you know build that brief before building agents. And I'd actually like to give an example over here so that it becomes a little bit more actionable than just theory. uh, so the agent brief looks something like this, and this is a template. I hope you're able to still see my screen. uh, so basically, inputs, what feeds your decision; rules, what how a routine is decided 90% of the time; boundaries, the trust that it should never break; and escalation, when a human should overtake; and how would you know that it has worked? So what is the measure of it? I also have basically a real example of how we do it. So one of our teammates has built this invoice reconciliation agent as part of extended workflow. But what you see over here is basically an idea is not honestly. I'll share both these things, the template as well as this worked out example, so that you are able to correlate and probably this becomes an action item directly. But the idea is, whenever you are building this, there are a lot of things that are blanks. So when we were building this, rules, escalation, measures, these are all blanks. And I'll actually tell you in the stories that I spoke about, when it came to, okay, how should we define the rules? What gets done? Actually, the first draft of the conversation where we were in that workshop, we asked, can you help us define the rules? We were told that there's a lady Martha on the team which checks if everything looks right. She's the rule. And in this age also, believe it or not, that's how a lot of exceptions and business rules are run in enterprises. And that is where I think the work of us as product managers come in a lot. Don't expect direct answers and your customers to just fill in everything for you. In my opinion, building agent is not PM's work. And this might be a little controversial, but anyways, happy to have a debate at some point. Building an agent is not our work. Filling these blanks right is honestly our work. Which is, okay, if Martha checks it and that's the business rule, but what does she do? Go deep. There is a tolerance level of 2 to 5%. You can auto clear some of this. These are the rules, but these won't come out, in just a beautiful format, because we have a template ready for us. And that's where it becomes really important that when we are having those conversations, we actually go in with open mind and are able to fill this right. So I'll just wrap up. If we have to put all these, whatever I talked about in, take key takeaways, even if you don't remember anything else, I know I got a little deeper into a few things. Still, these five is what I would suggest. One, there is no premium to AI. So you have to create a kill gate before you go to your customer, so that what value you are selling. Second, translate every metric into something that a customer can understand, and you can put a dollar/euro figure to it. Third, override rate is the trust metric. So don't go and think that, okay, because this is the best industry metric, I will just implement it as is. Design for override, design to gain that trust, especially if it's an AI agent which is doing so many things. Fourth, our data supply chain of KPIs, etc., has owners which we don't even know, a work council, a DPO, a board. So before you promise a feedback loop, think through all those decision gates, so that you are able to promise, you are able to fulfill your promise basically. And the last one is, if you can, specs, minutes, and price the labor line, not only the software budgets, especially in the age of agentic AI. Thank you. And I'll just say this one thing, which becomes now more and more visible in my conversations with everyone, that honestly, AI in B2B isn't it's not a model problem anymore at all. It is, till, in my opinion, the biggest problem is trust and translation. Can we do it right? And I hope that some of us are already doing it, obviously, and I hope that this session would help many of you to do it more. And happy to receive comments, feedbacks, and listen into how you are thinking when you're building it, and go through a mutual learning journey. Thank you, everyone.
Perfect. Thank you, Angad. This was really, really great. And thank you for sharing your template. I'm sure this will help a lot of people who are already in B2B, and also not just in B2B. I think anyone who's looking into agentic solutions would really, really benefit from this. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So in the meantime, I'm sure all of you must have a lot of questions. So here is the Slido link and the Slido code for you to be able to ask your questions, and we will relay them back to Angad. In the meantime, while we have everybody chipping in their questions, a little bit about product people again. So so what we typically do. So we typically are invited to join teams as interim product managers or product leaders. or as product coaches or consultants to upskill product management or operations teams, or to accelerate transformations in teams, if it's a merger or if it's some kind of a transition that the org is going through. A little bit more about some of our clients. You can see a list of very colorful names over here. Um, so yeah, this was a little bit about product people, some interesting stats. So till date, we've supported around 690 teams. We are about roughly a team of 40 product leaders and product managers. And as a woman, I'm super proud to say this, that our team and leadership collectively are around 59% women, which is super cool. But yeah, coming back to some of the responses from the team. So yeah, we already have a few questions, Angad, for you. So one of them is, in your experience, what are the first signals that an AI feature or agent is solving a real enterprise problem rather than just creating demo value?
Yeah, that's a great one, and obviously the most debated one in my opinion, because of the pace at which we are able to, kind of launch a lot of agents, and I see it across all companies when I speak with peers. Everyone is able to launch a lot more, and there are so many more things which are demo ready. But how many of them are really putting a dollar value impact? Honestly, if you ask me, it's less than 5% of whatever we are shipping, specifically with respect to AI agents. That's what my understanding from my peers and wherever I have conversations with. I think it's a process. Just to answer the question specifically, and it's a standard data analytics problem to solve for. One thing is, as I said earlier, also having the right metric, which is accepted by our user as well as the customer or the CFO, which is going to approve the budget. So having an eye on that metric is the most important thing in my opinion. And I see a lot of conversations get killed because the baseline of that metric is something that we are not able to agree in B2B enterprises, because a lot of times our customers don't even know the baselines, or probably they are shy of sharing those baselines because we are maybe a rounding error in that entire product stack for them. So I think, anyways, if you are building genuinely for an outcome, which is board level outcome, as we are discussing, it has to be a partnership on both sides where we are defining the metrics really well, measuring it as for a time specific, kind of a duration. It can be a week, 2 week, 3 weeks, depending on what kind of product and what kind of impact it takes. How much time to see the real impact. And in all honesty, we should be open to running few pilots, especially with our top customers, is what I feel, because anyways they are going now. A lot of these customers, B2B enterprise clients, have additional AI budgets, so which means that there is enough room created for experimentation. So if we are not gonna kind of participate in that budget, someone else will. So be conscious about it. Talk about the metrics, agree on the baselines, measure it for a specific period of time, repeat it, ensure that you build a playbook that is repeatable by sales and pre-sales, so that it's not only the product which is always thinking about this.
Perfect. I think you've already answered some of the more questions in terms of success matrix and the definition of good enough already within your answer. But there's also another question about what questions should PMs ask customers before deciding that an AI agent is the right solution?
I think, again, it's an interesting question. Uh, and honestly, I don't feel that there is a right answer to this one, because it totally depends on the context, in which you are trying to build. Um, I still see and feel I can share what I see, that a lot of agents is more of a RPA, robotic process automation, rather than being true agents. Still, 95% of the things that get demoed slash we implement are RPAs, in my opinion, because of the beautiful way N10 and others have actually enabled us to do that really well. Uh, But the truth is that an agent is required to solve for certain specific complexities. I think, again, if you look at the playbook, it starts with the inputs as well as what is measurable towards end. As long as you are able to define that right together with the customer, and that's why I said that those blanks are basically the PMing work. As long as we are able to get that filled right, I think we will arrive at the right answers. So there's no right answer, but we have to arrive at that.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much, Angad, for taking the time out and sharing these insights and also answering all of the questions. To our audience, thank you for listening. And if you'd like to stay connected, you can scan the QR code to subscribe to our newsletter for more inspiring product stories and insights. A little bit of a sneak peek into what you could look forward to next week. So next week we'll be speaking about coding agents for enterprise PMs with Alexandru Roman, who's the senior director of product management. And yeah, finally, thank you everyone for taking the time out and joining and listening to this chat. Thank you, Angad, for this lovely, lovely talk that's been super, super insightful and helpful for everybody. And yeah, we'll see you all in the next live stream.